Okay, this is the next practice I went to, which was in Bedminster, Bristol. And yeah, between the years of 83 and 1985. And these are the things that I'll sort of reflect on. I think the things that probably concern many of you who've just qualified. So it's the worries about having a complaint. Well, I had one of them. Worries about the GDC. Yeah, I had that. And my mental health. Well, yeah, and I do wonder how I managed, because it wasn't a great practice. Anyway, it's based in East Street, and yet again, I didn't have a principal there. There were two other dentists there, and quite frankly, they qualified longer than me, but they weren't particularly interested in work. We never really discussed much, but yeah, I could have done with a principal, and that's why I think we should all have, and you have a foundation training. It's why I become a trainer, and that in itself is a bit scary. Anyway, the practice was that the first floor of the brick building that you can see there, and there's a stairway to it, and yeah, that's about it really. The EE shop, no one had mobile phones back then, so that clearly this is recent photo taken off Google Maps, I think. And what I was going to talk about first was the complaint. And so back then it was a different time, and you used to see, quite messy mouths, and some of you may still do that. So I had a particular patient, and in the end, I must have sent for what we called a prior approval to see if I could do all the necessary extractions, root fillings, gold crowns on the back teeth, make some chromes, and also tidy up one anterior tooth, a central anterior. And everything went well. I did an awful lot of work with this woman. She was very pleasant, quite lively, but very pleasant, until I did everything as I was taught, try to improve oral hygiene, because clearly it wasn't great. And then, so as I was taught, was leave what they want done to last, which was the anterior crown. And so I did that. I fitted it, and as soon as I put it on, I tried it in. What do you think? Oh, well, not sure about the color, and it looked all right. So anyway, I stuck it in with a temporary cement and said, well, see what you think. Anyway, she came back, she wasn't happy. So I can't remember the sequence of events, but basically I replaced it 3 times. And at the third time, I said, well, I'm not going to replace it again. There's not much else I can do. And back then, the aesthetics were difficult to do unless you did a full PJC. And they were a lot of tooth tissue removal. Anyway, with one thing and another, she didn't pay. And it kind of escalated because she didn't pay. I didn't get paid, and she complained. And everything had been fine up until that point. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the RDO, who was a regional dental officer, he got to inspect her. But when he got to inspect her, her teeth were so sensitive he couldn't get near her. And so ultimately, he said that I should withdraw from the case, or rather, my defense organization said I should withdraw from the case. And what that meant was I had to pay for the lab fee. I had to pay, I didn't get paid for the time. And it was tricky. We have awkward periods, but the relationship just went pear-shaped. And I found that really concerning. Anyway, obviously it played on my mind. And yeah, as you can see on that one, I make videos, and this is part of a video. If you go into YouTube and see that, I made this for Dominic Cummings. Yeah, what happened to him? Anyway, what happened was that she went to the hairdressers a few months later, and one of the nurses went to the hairdressers, and they recognized her voice. And during the conversation, bearing in mind, this must have scared the hairdresser, she said, well, I never pay for anything. I always complain. It works a treat. So this woman had wriggled out of £12.50. And yeah, and I ended up massively in debt with a lot of stress. So thanks for that. And what you would say is a thing that I think is always useful is what my brother used to say to his family is, remember, life's not fair. And if you go along with that one, it's not ideal, but it helps. Anyway, that was, awkward. But this was worse. Yeah, so I can't believe I did this. But anyway, so it's in the news a lot. And if you're doing your foundation year, you'll get companies giving you lectures on, dentistry. And unfortunately, you end up practicing, as you would say, defensive dentistry, which basically means don't do anything. It's poor. Anyway, I looked up, but so my GDC number was 56753. I'm surprised I still remember it because it's nearly 3 years now. But anyway, as you can see, it's not on there. So it doesn't go as far back as when this happened, which I think was in 1984. And what happened was I did a load of treatment for a patient, a bit like the one you saw above. And she started quite anxious, but actually she, at the end, she was really pleased with what I did. And she said, look, Tony, I'm really happy, but the premises, she said that, the stairs we come up, they're dirty. There's all litter from the street, and the neck curtains are tatty and shabby, and it could do with a lick of paint. And she wasn't wrong. And so I said, well, look, we've asked the principal if he would let us have some paint and we'd tidy it up at one weekend, but he wouldn't pay for the paint and we haven't done it. So why don't you complain? You better write a letter. Which she did. And yeah, it had an effect. I think the RDO again come along, had a look, saw the net curtains, which, as you can see from the picture, aren't there anymore. And yeah, he concurred with what she said. And what happened was that I went up to the GDC in London, and I spent a day there. The other associates, I don't think they didn't go up there, but I met a guy called Rupert Hoppenbrouwers. I think he retired like a couple of years ago, but I think he's now a judge. But if you look him up, and he was a similar age to me, and the GDC hasn't got any better, because what they said was, I said, look, at this hearing, like a little court, half my money that I earn goes to the principal, and in the BDA contract, it says that he will provide premises that are suitable equipment, suitable materials, suitable staff. And I said, there's no problem with the treatment I provided. It was, there was no problem with cross-infection control, because at that time, I was the one that had the sterilizer in my surgery. There was one between 3. And yeah, we didn't have gloves, but, we had sinks. So yeah, anyway, the GDC didn't agree. They said if the premises are scruffy, then I shouldn't work there. And yeah, and after that, so I got fined, I think it was £500, which was a lot of money then. Bizarrely, the same amount as the principal. So we both got fined the same amount. And after that, surprisingly enough, we decided in my interest and his that I left. But I'm not sure if you follow this, but this case is quite interesting, because what has happened now, recently there's a dentist, I think it was Lucy Williams. And if you look at her, she did something that I think I would have done if I thought of it. And ultimately what happened was that she got struck off. I'm pretty sure got struck off, but she has had to date 24 visits in London for full hearings with the GDC. And she got struck off, and then some judges made an appeal, and they said, well, you shouldn't have been struck off. Then the GDC then appealed against the appeal. So some more judges met and said, no, that was the right decision. In fact, that a lot of the contract is incorrect, which is really interesting. And we need to stand up a bit more about this sort of thing. People are trying to do it, but it doesn't seem to be for some reason, the defence organisation's interests to help all of us. But, 24 days, there's a video of at least eight lawyers in the room, probably charging £12 an hour. Oh, no, it'd probably be a bit more than that. But talking to lawyers, or rather dentists, the best paid dentist is in charge of this law firm that has 50 lawyers who go around, looking up negligent claims. And of course, if any claim occurs, then it's the lawyers that get the money. and ultimately defence fees go up and up and up. We need to be doing something different. And clearly the public need to be protected, but that should be the job of the profession, not the lawyers. And if you listen to this chap, that's what he says. The Reith lectures are brilliant if you listen to them. And in part of it, I think it was number 2 that he talks, and he's, surprisingly, this guy's clever, scary clever. I'm rubbish in an argument, but when you hear him talk, it's interesting. But what he does say, that lawyers have no place really in medicine, and the same applies to dentistry. We need to get our own act together. But as it says there, he also states that they, teach and at university and graduate 6 times as many lawyers as they did about 90 to 100 years ago for medics and dentists. So what are the lawyers going to do? They've got to do something. So for them, we are the low-hanging fruit. But if we had, for argument's sake, a top barrister who could, say, write a decent contract that could protect ourselves and the public, to be fair. I mean, I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but it's swung too far the other way. So anyway, I think there's some dentists out there sort of my age who are trying to make things better. But most dentists my age are glad to get out of it, which is a crying shame. So yeah, well, I made a video on it, and I think we're partly responsible. So I think this might play. Oh no, where did it go? Anyway, maybe it'll play. But there we go. So litigation. I think what happened is we started specialization in this year, and what that meant was that the expectation was that people would be, carry out better endo, carry out better perio, all the things were the sort of top notch. However, it seems that the lawyers got hold of it as well, and the standards provided on the health service, regardless of how much you got paid, seems to go along the lines of what a specialist would do. And so, for my mind, which is what this video says, is that general dentists ought to be paid more than specialists. Most specialists do it because they got a bit bored with what they were doing during the day, and being a general dentist is far harder. And we shouldn't be being penalized because, as you would say, in an ideal world, the root filling maybe, I haven't got a complete apical seal, or you miss that elusive mesiobuccal canal. There's lots of things that aren't right about that. Anyway, your general health, or our general health, it's all about, to look after your patients, you have to be fit. And I was really unhappy working in Bedminster. You're flying by the seat of your pants when you haven't really had much support. And so this is about I think I got lucky when I say got lucky, I probably shouldn't have trimmed that post crown without wearing protective glasses. So that was fun, having that removed from a cornea. But on the right, you can see I'm the guy the obviously, what's it called, like an angel when I'm all in white. And with one of my mates. And this is Bristol Airport. So any of you flown out of Bristol Airport, this is what it looked like 40 years ago. And the person on the right is a dentist that lived with me at the time. He lived in my flat. That's how I paid for it, because I wasn't earning that much as a dentist, to be honest. So I had a couple of dental tenants, and it was really good to talk to them, in that we all had a good whinge, and and that's normal. I think whatever profession you're in, whatever job you do, you have a little moan, but it helped to have someone who could give some advice, or say their day was slightly worse than yours. And this was the other thing that I did. I always played football. See if you can spot me. I've got hair then. This was a great team. We won the senior amateur cup in Bristol, so in the top division. So we won that. And then I think that year we also won the Gloucester and Somerset Senior Amateur Cup. So we trained twice a week, and I think that took my mind off dentistry. as did this. So this was my car. It was my best car and my worst car, because I loved that car. When it went quick. However, it didn't go that often, and it would rarely start to take me to work. So I wouldn't start the car. So I'd get out of the car, go and get my leathers, jump on my motorbike, and that wouldn't start. And then I'd run back in and get out my push bike and go down to the practice. And I think I got it. It only took because it was in Clifton in Bristol, it was top of the hill. It only took about 12 pedals one day to get to work. But coming back was a different thing, and you have to come up a really steep hill. And I think by the time I got to the hill and the top of the hill, all the memories of the day are gone. And I often tell people I'm blessed with a bad memory, because generally I didn't worry too much about what had gone on, apart from maybe the complaints, apart maybe from GDC. But other than that, it was great. And I do think that my interest in just sort of keeping reasonably fit helped. And oh yeah, I still do that. And so then, so this is, I go cycling here most weekends still. So this must be a couple of years ago. But yeah, I only really cycle off-road, because that way I won't get hit by a lorry. And this is really about peer review. So talk about peer review. The best thing that helped with our health, not the best thing, but a really good one, was peer review. So back in the day, you know I'm a boomer. So basically everything's brilliant. We used to get paid for peer review, but they brought it in because lots of dentists worked on their own in single practices. And we were not only were high earners, we were top of the suicide list. And so I think that was my thoughts of why it was brought in. So anyway, when they stopped paying for it, I think I started a group about 12 years ago, probably longer now, because it's the right thing to do. It's a good way to learn. And we had lots of little meetings, group meetings. So I'll talk about this some other time, but it's the best thing for your mental health. We had one meeting whereby the endodontist was meant to turn up, but he broke his arm playing football, which of course he should be doing. He should be playing five-a-side and getting out there. So what I did was for some reason, I'd been on Future Learn. So look on Future Learn for different courses, and these should be part of CPD if you complete them. So there's stuff surprising enough on, how to build an app, because that's what I did. And, how to sort out websites, digital marketing, which clearly I'm not very good at, but I did that. And the dental one, there's one there for, I think it's called the perfect image or something like that. But there's one on dentistry for taking the perfect image. But whilst I did the course face-to-face, the slides are identical to what I did face-to-face. And if you look at any of my pictures, you'll know that I didn't really follow the course using the SLR. I just used an intraoral camera to quick snapshots now and again. So they're not perfect, but I'm never going to give lectures on it. So that's all right. But certainly get a group of different ages, people like me who've retired, I still go along, and people who've just started. And it's a great way to learn. And the best part is afterwards is meeting up and discussing issues that have been bothering you. But we had all kinds of people. Unfortunately, we all have different contacts. And these people, like we had one of our friends got oral cancer. So the chap that treated him came in because we knew him. Microbiome? Well, my friend, he's a professor on that, so he came in. And one of the scary ones, if you look about the future, it talks about news. And the news was from a doctor who suffered from sepsis. And so you'll see references to all these things in the app. So I hope you look at that. And I hope you give me some feedback on how this is presented, really. I've done a couple of others. I want to know what's best. And then I'll make a few more, because there are all kinds of stuff. I can talk about ozone in dentistry. I can talk about minimal invasive dentistry using a CEREC. I can talk about all manner of things that I did that worked and those that didn't. And that's how we should learn. We should share one another's experience. So yeah, please give your feedback, and then I'll make another one, but better.